I defend Justin Baldoni in this lawsuit with Blake Lively because I think she's horrible and she's made up this whole thing because she tried to steal his movie.
Blake Lively is in big trouble. Once one of the most beloved actresses in Hollywood, she is now facing one of the biggest public backlashes of her career. People who used to admire her are now turning against her. And the worst part? She did this to herself. What started as a simple Hollywood controversy has now turned into something much bigger. Fans, the media, and even her colleagues have turned on her. Hollywood fairy tales don't always have happy endings, and for Blake, this might be the beginning of the end.
Listen to me, Blake Lively. Tap out. Tap out. Call Uncle right now.
Everything started with a lawsuit, a massive one. Blake is being sued for $400 million, along with her publicist, her husband, and even the New York Times. But the lawsuit itself isn't even the biggest problem. It's how she reacted to it. Instead of handling it quietly, Blake decided to make herself the victim. She tried to use the Me Too movement to her advantage, hoping people would rally behind her. But Justin Baldoni wasn't going to let that happen. He fought back with proof and unstable.
Justin is suing the New York Times for $250 million. Holy hell, this is insane. I mean, he's going to have a hard time proving it, right? I mean, we're going to have to see. No one just sues the New York Times, or do they? I don't.
But Baldoni's lawsuit paints a different picture. In it, he claims that the New York Times selectively quoted texts and emails, stripping them of critical context to make him look like a villain. He argues that the article has caused irreparable harm to his career and personal life, and he's seeking $250 million in damages. On June 2, 2023, Blake Lively began a text exchange with her It Ends With Us director and co-star, Justin Baldoni, who blamed her assistant for not getting her an updated batch of script pages. She didn't realize they were new. This lawsuit comes after the public turned against her during the press tour for It Ends With Us ever since the film adaptation of Colleen Hoover's best-selling novel was announced in 2019. Anticipation has been sky-high. With over 20 million copies sold worldwide and the novel becoming a TikTok sensation, fans had immense expectations. However, the announcement of Blake Lively, famous for her role as Serena van der Woodsen in Gossip Girl, being cast as Lily Bloom left many fans skeptical. Their concerns grew after set photos revealed unexpected costume designs for her character. The tension escalated even before filming began, as reports surfaced about conflicts between Blake and Justin Baldoni, who not only directed the film but also starred as Ryle Kincaid. While the exact reasons for their clashes remain unclear, whispers of creative disagreements and a strained dynamic behind the scenes began circulating early on, adding fuel to the already heated controversy surrounding the project. The speculation surrounding Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni only grew stronger when fans noticed that Justin appeared to keep his distance from the rest of the cast during production. Now, with the recent news of Blake's lawsuit, fans are revisiting everything that transpired before and during the press tour with a fresh perspective. Justin has been accused of inappropriate behavior on set and slandering Blake's character throughout the filming process. Strategic moves by the attorneys, and glimpses into what might happen during the main trial. According to unofficial sources, the presiding judge spent the bulk of the session reviewing the nature of the allegations, the potential scope of the upcoming trial, and each legal team's readiness to proceed with what promises to be a complicated series of proceedings. Everyone was prepared for this to be an intense opening act, and they were not disappointed. Justin Baldoni's attorney, Brian Friedman, arrived with an unmistakably combative stance. From the moment he entered the courtroom, Friedman made it clear that he had come to protect his client's interests fervently. Clad in a tailored suit and radiating a confident demeanor, he spared no effort in challenging Blake's legal team at every turn. Friedman insisted that Blake's lawsuit lacked firm evidence and characterized it as an attempt to damage Justin's name in the public eye. During these opening arguments, Friedman leveled criticisms against Blake's attorneys for trying to manipulate the media narrative before Justin had even had the chance to properly respond. This claim was bolstered by the fact that, earlier in the dispute, Blake's side had circulated information to a prominent news outlet with scarcely half a day's notice given to Justin. Unsurprisingly, Friedman expressed outrage at what he perceived as a tactic designed to box his client into a corner. Blake's attorneys responded forcefully, denying that their client was engaged in any effort to skew public perception. They maintained that Blake was the genuine victim of serious wrongdoing and had only gone public to ensure that the relevant facts were brought to light. Despite their insistence, Friedman quickly gained the upper hand in this early round by reminding the court that the original media coverage which showcased very damaging statements against Justin, placed him in a defensive position from the beginning. Friedman used this point to argue that Justin had every right to defend himself in an equally visible manner, whether that involved speaking to journalists, posting on social media, or even hosting a dedicated website to display what Friedman described as incontrovertible evidence. Friedman's determination was so striking. During production, signs of tension were evident, and Hollywood hates that. Actors who think they are above everyone else rarely last long in the industry. Producers don't want to work with someone who thinks they run the show. Directors don't want to deal with someone who refuses to follow the vision of the film. Blake thought she could do whatever she wanted, but now she's paying the price. As all of this plays out, Blake is running out of options. She has no more PR tricks left to use. No one is coming to save her, and the more she tries to fight back, the worse it gets. She wanted to take down Justin Baldoni, but in the end, she only took down herself.
And then she had the nerve, because she had 2 minutes of bad publicity when the film hit, to come out and try to blame it all on him. None of it was just due to the fact that she seems like a rather shitty person.
The fallout isn't just about this one scandal. It's about everything that led up to this moment. The stories are finally coming out. The people she stepped on are finally speaking up. Hollywood has a long memory, and now that the truth is out, there's no going back. The damage is done. Blake Lively tried to control the narrative, but the truth always finds a way out. And now she has to face the consequences. The world isn't buying her act anymore, and Hollywood, they've already moved on without her. Unfortunately for her, the spotlight is fading whether she wants it to or not, and that's the thing about Hollywood. It never stops moving. The industry always has fresh talent waiting to take the place of those who fall out of favor. As Blake scrambles to rebuild her image, new faces are rising, and executives are eager to invest in actors who bring in audiences without the baggage of controversy. Every casting decision now has her name scratched out and replaced with someone who doesn't come with a PR disaster.
To help clean up this mess, which is not clean upable, okay? This is not fixable at this point.
You have to admit it. You're wrong.
She will not recover from this.
For years, Blake had carefully crafted a public image, positioning herself as the charming, relatable actress everyone adored. But that illusion has crumbled, replaced by a reality she cannot escape. The industry thrives on reinvention, but only for those who can play the game strategically. Right now, Blake is playing all the wrong moves, with no studios offering her major roles, no brands willing to attach their name to her, and no high-profile allies standing beside her. She is becoming an afterthought. It is no longer a question of whether she will recover, it is a question of how long she will hold on before fully fading into obscurity.
If you're going to go nuclear, which is what she did, she went nuclear with the lawsuit.
Just throwing everything at a wall.
And the New York Times, she went nuclear, right? Because she thought, we're bigger than him.
Blake Lively's fall from grace isn't just another Hollywood scandal. It's a complete unraveling of everything she worked to build. The carefully maintained image, the illusion of control, the perfect Hollywood fairy tale, it's all slipping away. And the worst part is, there's no coming back from it. Because this isn't just about a lawsuit or bad PR. It's about what happens when an entire industry decides you're no longer worth the trouble. Hollywood is a machine that keeps moving forward, and Blake is learning that lesson the hard way. When actors are hot, studios fight for them. When they're not, they become expendable. Blake used to be a name that guaranteed headlines, but now her name only brings bad press. That's the last thing any studio wants. With every new controversy, every attempt to salvage her reputation, she's only digging herself deeper into irrelevance.
Did he show his silent support for Justin Baldoni by wearing the same floral pin Baldoni wore at the It Ends With Us New York premiere?
Behind closed doors, the damage is even worse than the public realizes. It's not just a few lost roles or declining follower counts. People who once worked with her are now speaking up about their experiences. Reports from past sets reveal she was notoriously difficult to work with, constantly overstepping her role and attempting to control everything. She made life miserable for directors, writers, and even other actors who dared to challenge her. And now that the public perception of her has shifted, these stories are finally being taken seriously. The very people who once stayed silent out of fear of backlash are now free to tell the truth.
That's what generated her negative press and led to a series of clips of her being insensitive in one way, shape, or form with other interviewers in the past. She has no one to blame but herself for that.
No one wants to be the one defending Blake Lively anymore. Hollywood thrives on redemption arcs, but only for those who play the game correctly. Blake has done the opposite, burning bridges, creating unnecessary drama, and doubling down on behavior that makes her impossible to work with. And once the industry labels you as difficult, that label never really goes away. The irony
to people that this impending lawsuit will expose what he says is the truth behind Lively's complaint. He said, quote, "This is not a response or countersuit. It's a deliberate pursuit of truth."
This article triggered Baldoni's $250 million defamation suit, in which he accuses the New York Times of deliberately distorting facts and cherry-picking evidence to create a narrative of misconduct. Meanwhile, Blake Lively filed her own lawsuit detailing allegations of harassment and retaliation. Now, both cases are headed for a legal showdown.
During improvised kissing scenes, and also shot those scenes more times than would be expected to be reasonable, and during a scene where no audio was recorded, that Baldoni spoke to her out of character, not as the person he plays in the film, then licked her neck and said it smells so good, and after being confronted by this behavior, told Lively that he wasn't even attracted to her. Again, this is according to the complaint.
The New York Times article alleged that Baldoni orchestrated a smear campaign to silence Lively after she brought up concerns about his behavior. According to the report, Lively claimed that Baldoni frequently crossed professional boundaries, entering her trailer uninvited, making inappropriate comments, and pressuring her into uncomfortable situations.
During another scene, Lively claims Baldoni improvised a kissing scene according to the complaint. Mr. Baldoni discreetly bit and sucked on Ms. Lively's lower lip during a scene in which he improvised numerous kisses on each take.
When Lively expressed her discomfort, the article alleged that Baldoni and his PR team retaliated by planting negative stories about her in the media.
Her and made her want to give you over the movie rights. I mean, she had a lot of requests.
Yeah, I don't know if, again, I feel like there was some divine guidance there. I don't think it was the words. I think it was the intention and the why that I wanted to make the movie, and the heart that I try to put in everything that I do. And I think at the end of the day, that speaks maybe more than words do. I think that people can feel the intention. It's like the difference between like your grandmother's food and a restaurant's food, right? There's something that's always different about it, and that's the way that we try to make movies, and it's the way I try to live, and I don't know, maybe Colleen just felt that.
At the New York premiere of It Ends With Us, eagle-eyed fans noticed a glaring absence of group photos featuring the main cast. This fueled speculation further, especially after social media users discovered that several cast members, including Blake Lively, had unfollowed Justin Baldoni on Instagram, a move many considered a significant red flag. As the press tour kicked off, tensions appeared to escalate, and Blake's approach to promoting the movie came under heavy criticism online. Many took issue with how Blake handled the promotional efforts, arguing that she focused more on florals, fashion, and her hair care line rather than addressing the serious issues explored in the story. During one event, she even invited fans to grab their florals to see the movie, a move that left critics and fans questioning the tone and sincerity of the promotion. This added another layer of controversy to an already fraught situation.
With Us is in theaters now, so grab your friends, wear your florals.
This particular comment from Blake Lively struck a nerve with many, as it was widely deemed tone-deaf given the film's serious subject matter. Instead, she was encouraged to maintain a lighthearted tone while promoting the film, in stark contrast to the serious themes portrayed. As the press tour progressed, many suspected that it wasn't until Justin Baldoni saw the public reception that he decided to go rogue. His Puerto Rico team allegedly pushed for a more authentic approach, which resulted in Justin being portrayed as the only serious member of the cast. This shift led fans to believe that there was an elaborate effort to smear Blake's name in the media, with one fan commenting that they felt manipulated into blaming Blake, while the real responsibility likely lay with the entire team of studio executives and producers. The fan expressed disdain for Justin's actions, stating, "Justin is a gross man for going rogue at the expense of Blake's reputation." They also noted that Blake's behavior during the promotional campaign now made more sense, adding, "I feel terrible she went through that, it's horrible."
This alleged smear campaign caused what Blake described as substantial harm to both her personal and professional life.
Her irony is, this entire downfall could have been avoided if she had handled things differently, if she had shown even a shred of humility, taken accountability, and stepped back instead of pushing forward. She might have salvaged her career, but instead, she chose to fight a battle she was never going to win. She underestimated how quickly the tide can turn in Hollywood and how fast support can disappear when you're no longer useful.
Outside of some serious evidence to the contrary, there's very little in the way that Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds can do to turn their image around other rather than just going dark for a period of time.
Her attempts to paint herself as a victim have completely backfired. Instead of sympathy, she's facing mockery. Instead of gaining allies, she's losing them. Even the most diehard fans are struggling to defend her, realizing that the person they supported isn't the person they thought she was. The entertainment industry is brutal, but it's also predictable. Once an actor becomes a liability, studios cut their losses. It doesn't matter how famous you once were. If you're bad for business, you're out. And Blake is rapidly approaching the point of no return.
It's funny because Justin Baldoni sued him for just over what they're worth.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Oh, God, that attorney scares the shit out of me, Brian.
Yeah. Yeah.
The offers have dried up. The A-list status she once held is gone. Directors are actively looking for replacements in projects where she was once the top choice. And the most telling sign, the media is no longer trying to spin this in her favor. Even the outlets that once supported her have realized that defending her isn't worth it. The headlines have turned from cautiously neutral to openly critical. And once that shift happens, there's no undoing it. Meanwhile, her former colleagues are thriving. Justin Baldoni, the man she tried to take down, has come out of this looking better than ever. He didn't have to fight back aggressively or engage in petty PR battles. He let the truth speak for itself, and Hollywood has rewarded him for it. His career is only getting stronger, while Blake's is crumbling before her eyes.
And I'm sorry, like when people say you've done something wrong or like whatever, I've been there, it's like, great, show me the text, show me what I did, show me the screenshots. There's none because it never happened exactly. She can't show shit. He can show everything.
She's facing a reality that most actors fear, being completely replaced. Hollywood moves on fast, and the public forgets even faster. With new stars emerging every year, there's no reason for studios to take a risk on someone with a reputation for being high maintenance and manipulative. And once that cycle starts, it's nearly impossible to reverse. The scariest part for Blake is that this isn't just about professional consequences. It's about losing the one thing that mattered most to her, her influence. She built her career on public perception, carefully curating an image that made her seem untouchable. But now, that image is shattered, and she's being forced to see what happens when people stop believing in it. Hollywood is a business, and right now, Blake Lively is bad for business. Studios aren't just replacing her, they're actively distancing themselves. The silence from other celebrities is deafening. No one is rushing to her defense, no one is publicly offering support, and no one is willing to risk their own reputation to stand by her. That alone tells you everything you need to know about how serious this situation is.
Your reputation isn't good, everyone's gonna come out with their stories and their receipts. And the one time they worked with Ryan, he was a jerk. And the one time they worked with Blake, she was the worst. And they're all gonna come out.
At this point, her options are extremely limited. A comeback isn't impossible, but it would require a complete reinvention and, more importantly, actual humility. But given how she's handled things so far, that seems unlikely. She still refuses to acknowledge what she did wrong, still clings to the belief that she's the victim, and still seems convinced that the world will eventually come back around to her side. But the truth is, they won't. Not unless she gives them a reason to. The question now isn't whether she can fix her career, it's whether she even understands how much damage she's done. Hollywood may love a redemption story, but it only works when the person at the center of it is willing to change. And if Blake isn't willing to do that, then there's only one future ahead for her, one where she fades into irrelevance, remembered not for her work, but for the scandal that ended it all. Blake Lively's downfall isn't just another Hollywood scandal, it's a masterclass in how not to handle a crisis.
Colleen Hoover took it a step further and deleted all of her posts with the shampoo company owner.
If she had just stayed quiet, taken some time out of the spotlight, and let the controversy die down, she might have had a chance at redemption. But instead, she kept pushing, kept trying to control the narrative, and only made things worse. The more she tried to manipulate public perception, the more obvious it became that she was the problem. Hollywood has always been a place where reputations are fragile, but even in an industry known for covering up scandals, Blake's situation is different. She isn't being quietly pushed aside.